So wind power in Antelope County, as John said, I came to Neely in 2017, inherited a couple of great projects that we have going on with the Prairie Breeze 1, 2, and 3 projects. And then we are currently looking and we're finishing up construction of our upstream wind farm project in Antelope County. So here's a little map I put together. The first 3 projects are mostly in the southern part of our county. Near Boone County as well. The Prairie Breeze projects spill over into Boone County a little bit, also into Madison County. The upstream is in Antelope County, and then we are looking at a 5th wind farm project, Thunderhead project, that would also go into Wheeler and a little bit into Holt County, but predominantly these projects are located in Antelope County, with Neely being the county seat. So we deal with all the different projects that are going on. We work with the major corporations that are coming through, working with the construction firms that are needing to house their people, and try to generate a better quality of life, not only for our residents, but also for the workers while they're here constructing, and also for the employees that are staying long term. Currently, with the 3 farms that are operational, we have about 300 megawatts being produced within our county. Upstream is going to produce about another 200 megawatts, and then there's the potential for between 300 and 500 megawatts should Thunderhead get approved, and we're really hopeful that that project will be moving forward. So what are some of the benefits that we are seeing in Antelope County? Really, it's kind of a broad spectrum of impact that we are seeing. The first one we're looking at is the different tax dollars that we're receiving and funding for our local schools. I had some information that came in very recently from our county treasurer. In 2018, just off of the 3 Prairie Breeze projects, because those are the only ones that are online, the nameplate tax that was gathered in 2018 was $894,000. And then the real and personal property tax was just shy of $200,000. So we're looking at $1.1 million that was generated from the Prairie Breeze projects, which is just 300 megawatts for our county. And that goes to a number of different things. Some of it goes into the county general fund, but it also goes towards Northeast Community College, our local educational service units, Elkhorn Valley Public School, Elgin Public School, Boone Central in Boone County. They all receive funding. And then our local natural resource district also receives funding from these farms, along with each of the community fire departments, all receive funding from these projects. And so that's a big boost for us because it allows us to allocate funding without having to increase our tax dollars locally on our local residents. And as an example, for the Elgin School in 2018, they received $350,000. That's one school district off of the 3 projects with the Prairie Breeze. And so that's a substantial amount of funding that they're receiving for the school. We also look at housing, the housing market across Nebraska. We all know we need more of it, but this increased demand allows us to put more investment into our housing and guarantee that we're going to have people renting, people purchasing. For housing-wise, we're looking at, for each of these projects, with the upstream, they're hiring about 16 people that are going to be there indefinitely. And so for us, that's 16 families that have a very good paying job that are going to need long-term housing. And so for us, we are able to put the investment into building those facilities to meet that demand and build some new homes, refurbish current stock, and then also build rental units for contractors and construction. And so that's a good benefit for us. We also look at our medical industry, which is one that many people don't often consider. Hello, Luke. Good to see you. Our medical industry has seen a boost from the wind farms because of the increase in contractors that are there and the people that need medical attention should anything happen. So we're seeing an impact in that industry. Also within our entertainment and food industries, those are really the ones that we see the greatest impact because the people are there Not all of them are eating at home all the time. They're going out with their coworkers. They're eating at our local establishments. And then our local establishments are looking at ways that they can create a better quality of life for the contractors that are there. So they're offering more entertainment options. And that also goes back and impacts the local residents that were there previously, because they are now able to go to those same events and take advantage of the new offerings for entertainment. We also look at one that I really like is the impact on our rural roads. We had a couple instances where some roads that were not supposed to be driven on were driven on, and the roads were damaged, and then we kindly worked with our local developer to fix those roads. And those roads are now some of the best roads in the county, and selfishly, I hope that they destroy a couple more roads so that we can build some new ones, because they are really nice roads. And having that ability to improve some different things, and even on the roads that they're supposed to travel on, because of the size of the vehicles, and these are on rural roads, they're building bigger corners, they're building bigger turns, and that allows our local agricultural traffic to be transported easier. So there's a lot of benefits that we're seeing in these different areas that one wouldn't typically expect. So I guess that's kind of the main area that I wanted to cover.
And I think from what I saw on Gabe's slide there, he talked a lot about kind of the business impact. I'd like to talk, we've got two projects going on in our vicinity. We have the Rattlesnake project that is in El Green Power's project over in Dixon County, and that's 100% of the power going from that is going to be serving the Facebook data center down in Omaha, or Papillion, however you want to classify that these days. The second facility is going to be in the northwest quadrant of Wayne County. It's a 160 megawatt facility. It's called the Shoals Wind Energy Center. NextEra Energy Resources is the partner on that one. And they are in the early construction phase of that. On the Dixon County project, the Rattlesnake project, they're in the latter construction phase of the project. And I think the goal is either late this year or early next year. Kevin, maybe you know for sure what their online date is going to be as far as producing power. And the goal with Shoals was to have that project online by the end of this calendar year, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be early next year. But if there's somebody from NextEra here that can correct me, I'm willing to listen. The biggest thing that we've seen, there has been some negativity towards the Shoals project in our county. I started about a year and a month ago at Wayne Area Economic Development, and the first couple months I was on the job, it was a pretty strong negative opposition to it. In December, there was a major forum. I wouldn't say that it was, I don't know how to describe it, but it was put on by NextEra. They brought in a lot of professionals, whether it was environmentalists or the contractors, and they tried to answer as many questions as possible for the community. After that forum back in December, they kind of let things taper off. Once the county road use agreements were put in place, or the last approval of that, there was another little push at the county level from area residents in the northwest quadrant about maybe trying to derail things. But the county commissioners were pretty set on how things were going to go. They had a really good relationship with the folks at Baird Home working on NextEra's behalf as far as the road use agreements. And I think everything went as smoothly as it could, all things considered. One thing that I noted when we had the NextEra groundbreaking back at the end of July, the profound impact that this project and all these wind projects has on individual landowners. And I don't mean just the folks that have contracts. There's a profound impact on any landowner in the vicinity of these projects. Some people love it, some people hate it, and that's okay. You're all entitled to your opinions. The folks that do get contracts, I think it provides a tremendous amount of stability for their operation. A lot of times in farming, we like to kind of, what's the right word? Mystify it or place it on a pedestal and just say these guys are great at what they do and they just do it. That's why we're the breadbasket of the United States. Farming needs to be taken more with a business sense because there's a lot of different factors that affect the American farmer these days. So having the contract provides a bottom line stability for them, I think. Like I noted that day, we have folks that are parents, grandparents, great-grandparents that are landowners, and they're able to say, you know, over the next 30 years, I'm able to put X amount of dollars into a trust fund for my kid or my grandkid to go to college. We're able to put away X amount of dollars so that if we have a bad year where commodities prices are really tanking or nobody wants to buy anything, we have some stability to be able to buy groceries or to, you know, if we've held off on a truck, we're able to upgrade on a truck or a new piece of equipment. It's just another asset line that they can tell their banker or whoever else they're looking to work with. I think that stability provides, and me being a risk-averse individual, that's why I'm in the job that I do, I try and tell people, let's be practical. But I think that sings to me, that stability sings to me, and I think the practicality of the average American farmer, I think that sings to them as well. So that, you know, we're seeing the same things that I think Gabe has seen over in Antelope County. They've got a lot of impact on the local businesses, especially hospitality industry. Our restaurants and our hotels are going gangbusters. You can hardly find a room at our 2 or 3 hotels in Wayne that are the regular venues. If you look at Randolph, where NextEra has kind of set up shop, it's gangbusters in that community. They've got, I can't even describe how much activity is happening up there. I think Kevin Conant in the back there, he can attest to what's happened in Allen. Allen seems like a little bit of a sleepy town a lot of the times, but as the Mortensen crew came in for the Rattlesnake Project and all the other subcontractors came into town, the Henry's Bar on the main drag in Allen has been the hot spot. If you look at Sidelines Bar and Grill in Wakefield, it's been one of the hot spots for all these folks that are coming into the communities. And I just, one thing that sticks out to me, Jim Litchfield in Wakefield, he's the city administrator, and he talked a lot about just as a random occurrence that he was waiting at the Cubby's gas station and he saw stacks, and we're talking stacks of Godfather's Pizza Box because they've got the ability to make Godfather's Pizza there. And he asked the counter, where's all that going? And they said, we're taking it up to the Mortensen shop north of Wakefield because they have a big group out there today. And he said, how many are you doing? 60 pizzas. 60 large pizzas for one meal. And I said, that changed his perspective on what these people were doing in the communities. And it's a very short window, but it can make a real big impact. I cut my teeth in economic development up in Laurel, and one of our trucking diesel mechanic shops, they were talking about the familial relationship they've developed with some of the transport folks. I think ATS is the one company that's been working for the Shoals or for the Dixon project. We have a shuttle loader grain facility in Laurel, and this track siding was a perfect offloading site for all of the steel tubes that create the tower on these wind farms. They also brought in the generator housings on rail and offloaded them using this siding. So they had to build up county roads to get to the siding, but they had hundreds of trucks coming through every single day because there was, I think, 101 towers on the Dixon project, and there's 3 pieces to each tower, and there's 1 generator for every tower, so you do the math. And they've got not just the truck driver, the generator housing is so heavy that the complete load is about 750,000 pounds when it's all said and done. There's a driver, and then there is a pusher truck because of the weight. You also have 2 guide cars on the generators in the front and 2 guide cars in the back. Every single one of those people has to eat and sleep and do laundry and find something to do when they're not driving. When it was raining, they couldn't drive. So they were busy downtown in Laurel. They were busy in Wayne. They were busy in Wakefield. They were busy in Allen. I think the same thing is going to continue as we look at what's going on over in northwest Wayne County. And there's still discussions that maybe Lincoln Clean Energy will be coming to the southwest quadrant of Wayne County. If there's anybody here that wants to talk to me about that, I'd love to learn more. But when there was scuttle about a big power contract for selling that generated power, it got the same discussions happening again in the county. So I've kind of drank the Kool-Aid on wind. I appreciate what it has done for our areas, not just in my current wheelhouse with Wayne Area Economic Development, but even my old stomping ground in Laurel.
You know, yesterday somebody, had made the mention at one of the other deals we spoke at about getting people to run for boards, and I don't know, I must be, as one guy said, a masochist because I enjoy being on boards. I enjoy working with people, and it's kind of exciting. There's a saying behind every successful man, there's usually a woman involved. In my case, it is my wife and my daughters. But with me today, Nicole's here in the crowd, but Nicole's going to help run the slides because I've never done a PowerPoint deal, so it takes a lot of women to make me look halfway professional here. So, Nicole, thanks for helping me out. So let's see what we did here, Nicole. One of the big things as a county official that come along and listen to these guys, we understood the economic development that would come along in the businesses. Just when you fill every motel and you fill the restaurants and stuff like that. But me as an elected official, what we were concerned about was our road structure. We were concerned about the fact, is this going to be something that the taxpayers are going to pay for a number of years to fix up these roads? So one of the first things that we did was a road haul agreement. What the road haul agreement did for Holt County, it started out with a letter credit. The letter credit was for approximately, what do we have up there, Nicole? $5.7 million. Every Wednesday, our road superintendent and the supervisor in that district would go out to the project and they would check and see what was being done right or wrong with the roads. If there was some problem that wasn't being fixed, BHE or Grand Prairie had 14 days to remedy the problem. If not, we could write a check out to the county and fix the problem. We went through the whole construction of the 200 towers out there and never used one penny of their money. And so every Wednesday, we would go. They worked very good. The letter of credit was a great part of it. On our roads, the road haul to go into the site was about 56 miles. What we did with the county is we had an agreement with them. BHE spent $6.5 million, 5.5 as it says up there, $1 million to fix up them roads so they could haul the stuff into our county. It did not cost our taxpayers one penny to do that. And part of the reason that we wanted that was people originally come in there, they said, we can see that since this is up by O'Neill, that this is going to be good for O'Neill, but what is it going to do for us that live in the outskirt? All we're going to do is we're going to pay for it through our taxes. So our main concern was this could not be something that costs the taxpayers. So with the road haul agreement, and we were able to do that. It never cost the taxpayers. I just did a quick note when you thought I wasn't paying attention up here. Had we not had a road haul agreement to do the $6.5 million, what we received in taxes would have taken 18 years to recoup that money. That was what we did not want to happen. Ours, as I said, in Holt County in 2017, the total amount of taxes that was paid was $1,969,304. That was divided up amongst, as you're all familiar with, the tax entity between the townships and the fire districts and the school districts. So we're seeing the benefits of the tax dollars. Nicole, we probably need to go back to our script here. During the construction part, you can see the sales tax receipts prior to in 2014 and 2015. This was done in the city of O'Neill. It was where this was, where the hub was 623. During construction, it jumped up to 731,000, and then towards the end of it, dropped back down, and you can see what it currently is. So during the peak of the construction, you can see what the sales tax increase there. Jobs created. There's 25 jobs that created in Holt County, which are people that send kids to their schools. Right now, there's 18 full-time, and there's 12 temporary. What do we got next, Nicole? There's a copy of the taxes as I was explaining. Got ahead of myself. But there's the tax receipts that was paid out. The taxes that I'm concerned about up here at the top is $118,000 there, clear at the top. That is what was paid on the real estate and personal property. Down at the bottom here is what's paid off the nameplate. You're all familiar with the formula. As it says for each megawatt that's produced, Our county share was another 297. That's where we come up with the 400 where'd my sheet? 415,000 that I have to spend or to use for the county's benefit. Prior to it, there was a little gal in high school did this in her FFA for an FFA project. So she did a survey to find out what people would think of this project. Of the 244 people, the residents that she surveyed, 69.7 perceived the wind farm to be a positive factor in the community. 65% said the wind farm makes money brings in money to our economy. 61% said that it was environmentally friendly, and 60.7 declared it to not be a misuse of the land. On our setbacks, we're a heavily irrigated area where the BH is. We wanted it to be to where they could have an irrigated quarter and still have wind towers on their ground. So the setbacks allowed them to have that in the corner. Now, somebody might drive up and say, well, Bill, that isn't true, because we drove out there and we saw one pivot that's going around a wind tower. To my knowledge, there's only one that did that, and the guy wanted a tower so bad on his ground, he said, I'm willing to reverse my pivot and go around it, because where originally they planned, it would not work for it. So he allowed, so there is one field out there that has the pivot that wraps around the pivot, but that was the farmer's choice. We do have a decommissioning. That's been brought up. What is the decommissioning plan? In our planning and zoning, there is a decommissioning plan. There's a letter of credit to cover that upon the decommissioning. Most of these, if any of you have any questions or would like to see either our road haul agreement or our decommissioning plan or our planning and zoning, you could contact our Holt County clerk. What we've found is a lot of the information that's in our stuff is project specific. So it's not going to be, it's not cookie cutter as you guys would all, it changes from town to town and from area to area. But our project, it worked good. We've had a lot of counties contact us since this project and to get copies. And I think if all counties kind of work together and all the economic development people work together, eventually we'll come up with a really great plan as far as that's with basically it'll be bulletproof, because as it keeps going and we keep learning what's going on with it. I guess is that our last slide, Nicole? Oh, there we go. Okay. With that, I guess I don't have anything else to say outside of our experience. I told some people earlier, BHE or Berkshire Hathaway come to the Board of Supervisors and they said, what do you wish out of this project? And one of the main things that we said is don't embarrass us. We do not want to make national headlines of crime or things being disruptive and cast a bad look on our county. During the whole construction, and I verified this again the other day with our sheriff, there was one altercation and it happened in a bar, and it was 2 workers that worked there. And so at the peak of this project, we had over 350 people there, and that lasted for approximately a year and a half on and off through the project. And to only have one altercation that was turned into police is incredible. And that's what we ask of our developers, is to make us proud of what you're doing. And so we had a great experience with it. The road haul agreement worked great as far as not cast on our taxpayers. We never got embarrassed by what it is. Now we're receiving the tax dollars, and so in my viewpoint, this has been a very successful project and has worked really well for us.
I have been working on rural economic development since 1974, when I was first elected to public office. So I've been either the head of a state farm organization or a public official since 1974. So that's, as near as I could tell, about 44 years. So we have tried lots of different kinds of things to try to help breathe economic opportunity into rural Nebraska. We have looked at all different kinds of things. And some of the things that we have done that have been successful is to look at the kinds of natural resources and the kinds of commodities we grow, the things that we do. And any time that agriculture can do value added it has been a plus because you're taking something that is basic and you're growing the value of it and getting the benefit of the additional value and economic opportunity in rural communities. So that has been my experience in having done this for a very long time. So let's take a look. We're a general farm organization. You get, this is our mission. We're there to help protect and enhance the quality of life and economic well-being of family farmers and ranchers in the rural communities. I got to tell you, I've been doing this for 28 years, and if I thought I was responsible for the difference in the economic well-being and the quality of life of family farmers and ranchers across the state of Nebraska, when I started in 1990 to today, I would fire me. Because things are tough. We are in year 5 of below cost of production commodity prices. We are going to have a lot of good producers, old, young, medium-aged, conventional, non-conventional. We're going to have a lot of folks in agriculture go out of business this year. So I just want to set the stage that, you know, you keep on doing what you've always been doing when things are working, and when things aren't working, you have to do things better and different to get a better outcome. So that is our mindset. We're the second oldest, second largest. We're across the state. We have worked in public policy. We helped create the public power system. We've helped create 446 cooperatives. So we're always looking at ways to work together to make things better and harness the power that's there in that cooperative process. And so here's where we are from looking at the beginning, from when we started in this arena a long number of years ago, is that we have $5.81 million of new annual income from Nebraska farmers and landowners. We've got a handout upstairs in the Farmers Union booth that gets into the particulars for both wind and ethanol, two of the most successful things that we've done in economic development in rural Nebraska. We brought more new capital, more new tax base, more new good-paying jobs, more new additional farm income to rural Nebraska, and those two renewable energy value-added things that we have done than anything else the state of Nebraska has tried to do in my lifetime. So these are successful. So that is, well, when you're selling corn in 2018 for less per bushel than I sold all of my corn for in 1973 when I started farming, I'd just say it's helpful. So Nebraska utilities have contracted for the electricity of several new wind farms over the past few years, and so we have now gone from 5 years ago to where we were at 589, something like that, to 1451. So we have added almost 1,000 megawatts in the last 5 years. And so if you look at the methodology, I'm using $4,000 per megawatt for 451 megawatts of wind developed. That's how we get to the 5.81. I will tell you that $4,000, there's a lot of contracts out there for $4,000. There's some that are lower than that, and that there are some contracts out there that are substantially higher than that. But this is a conservative estimate, and I think it's a good industry guesstimate. So that means $9.43 million of new local tax revenues annually. That's not anything to sneeze at, and so you look at, and Bill kind of got into the two different kinds of ways of bringing tax revenue to the table. One is through the system that we have in Nebraska, which I think is really a good kind of forward-leaning thing where, you know, we're looking at the long term instead of getting the big revenue in for a few years and then it's gone, and also putting, you know, additional expense on developers up front. We've got a steady revenue stream that people can count on. I think that is a better way of doing it. And we've got $2.5 billion at least of capital investment in rural Nebraska. I didn't put the numbers on the slide of how many permanent jobs I think we have because I don't think I have as good of a handle on it as I want. I think it's 150 plus. These are good paying jobs, but I think we've got somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2,000 indirect jobs that are tied to the wind industry. So that are indirect jobs. And so I'm not putting them on paper until I get a little better handle. So we're trying to figure out better, instead of doing imputed kinds of things, so we actually get more data. So these are big numbers, and so wind, solar, and renewable energy have really provided value added at a time when value added is really needed. And so one of the things that I've learned in doing this for 44 years, and it's what I tell folks that I work with in rural communities, the honest truth is, sorry to tell you the bad news is, that if you're not doing things to move forward, which in a lot of cases, given what's going on in your economic life, in your community, if you're not doing things to move forward, which in some cases might mean that you only hold your own and stay where you're at, but if you're not doing those things to move forward, you're moving backwards. And the one thing I know is that the state of Nebraska has to be open for business. We cannot afford to be in a retirement community for a handful of folks. We have to be open for economic investment, jobs, and that, and I was there when we took that picture, right east of my farm. I'm 5 miles east of the first wind turbine east of Petersburg. My farm is high enough up I can see 24 miles, either east or west. And so I can see most of the wind turbines in Antelope and Boone County. And it has meant new grocery stores. It has meant new economic opportunities. It's meant new young people moving into the community. And that is not the sun setting. That is the sun coming up. Thank you very much.
So we have time for, I think, 2 questions. So Vavra is already making his way over to the microphone. So he's going to ask the first question. So
Dave Vavra with Saline County Wind Association, and this is for whoever on the board. When we talk about the tax revenue that comes in, when I served on a town board a number of years ago, the legislature had limited us to no more than 2.5% increase in the amount of revenue we could spend. Now that you've got this additional revenue coming in, don't you have to offset and just lower your property taxes, and they're still limited by that 2.5%? I'm looking for clarification. So if you understand what I'm talking about. So give it to the guy on the end.
This is going to be it's kind of a joke related to your deal. It was a deal that I guess Bob Devaney did to Tom Osborne years ago. He said, that's such an easy question, I'm going to let Tom answer it. And so I don't know which one of these guys can answer that easy question. But on the levy, you're talking about if they have a lid.
You're right. You got the 2.5% for all taxing entities in the state of Nebraska. And I don't know if that's been reduced, removed, but if your income, your tax-based income increases, where we had the problem is we were the only Keno place in the county at the time, and so we had to adjust our tax levy down because our Keno money came in and caused us to go above that 2.5%. So if you got the additional money coming in, you've got to reduce the property taxes. That's what we had to do at that time. So it ends up, you really don't end up with that much extra money, and that's why I'm asking if that changed.
I guess on the county part of it, normally what we ask our department heads is to come in with about no more than a 3% increase on what they need for operating on. So about a 3% increase is what we figure on our budget. You're talking about what happened this year. Instead of our taxes going up to 3%, we were able to keep it at about a 1.8%. Is that all directly kept from the wind farm? It definitely helps. And so basically our valuation in Holt County, we were able to keep our valuation down lower. So I don't know if that's your question, or if that's
Hey,
the
Dave.
answer.
It won't take much time, but
Yeah.
you keep your value up, but you have to lower your mill levy.
Yes, correct.
Because you got to keep the tax take has got to remain within that 2.5%. So you don't have that much extra money, as I understand, but if I'm wrong, I'd be happy to be explained differently.
I think, and maybe John is going to explain this better, but in our viewpoint, as a county, we think the tax dollars are better to be left in the individual's pocketbooks. And so instead of taking this money and building us a bigger reserve, we leave it with the taxpayer. So what we did, even though the land values are where they are, we just are able to keep our levy lower It did go up a little bit. I don't know if there's anybody, unless you start cutting services, is ever going to say that you're going to cut taxes, because everything goes up. I asked people numerous times, other than your taxes, what else in your operation has gone up? Well, everything has. The cost of a vehicle, cost of repairs, everything has. The county is just an individual business on a bigger basis. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Hey, Dave, I think what we'll do is we'll refer you to Dave Levy. I think he's still at the conference. I think he'd be a real good resource for you and be able to address it head on. So we'll do that. All right.
Question.
All right, last question.
I'm interested in how you may have dealt with some of the growing pains of what was essentially the start of a new industry in your areas, like housing shortages, or maybe you had residents complain that construction traffic, or I can't get a table at my favorite restaurant anymore. How did you respond to those things?
Yeah, I guess I'll start with that. So housing in general in Nebraska is a big issue that we're all facing. With the extra people that we have coming in for the wind towers, it definitely put a big crunch on our community to provide housing, especially since we are a community of only 1,600 people. A lot of people were renting out spare bedrooms. A lot of people increased the price of the rent that they were getting for their units. And so what we're seeing is, well, we still have a big problem that we need to solve in the long term. We're having people who are willing to put more investment into housing because they're able to get a little bit more money for the units they currently have. And when we look at the future development, people are willing to speculate a little bit more on those. And so we're able to see more investment into the housing itself. But housing in general is a big issue that as economic developers, and Luke can attest to this, we're still trying to solve at a state level. There are some of us who have some really interesting ideas for how to go about that, but that's still something that's really needing to be looked at.
With the Dixon project, some of the growing pains were mitigated because most of the transport occurred outside of a peak season for ag. Most of that happened over the summer and early fall here. For the Shoals project, there has been a lot of consternation over the fact that harvest is going to be concurrent with the onset of those construction build-outs. So that's just something that they've referred back to the county, and the county and the NextEra attorneys have assured us that everything is in the road use agreement, and we just have to rely on that, and we just have to learn to be good neighbors. It's not going to be easy, because if there's one thing I've learned in economic development, change is hard no matter how big or how small or how fast. It's just going to be a hard change for everybody. And hopefully in the long term, everybody gets along. I don't expect that to happen because I know how human beings work, but we're always hopeful, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think that concludes our session here today. Before, one reminder here, we do have the surveys. If everyone fill out a survey, and please turn it in. I think we're having a drawing for a couple of free registrations for the next conference, so please do that. And I want to, Gabe, you have one last thing?
Yep.
Yep.
There was one thing I wanted to point out that had come up and that had been mentioned. I just really wanted to double down on this. We talked about the ability for the farmers themselves to have a hedge, and this really comes into risk mitigation both for the farmers and at the state level, that I really want to push with risk mitigation for the farmers on the market. Having that regular check that they can expect from the wind farms allows them, as Luke said, to go out and make some of these choices and make some of these purchases for their farm. And then at the state level, if you look at risk mitigation, when we are looking at how we are going to source the energy that we need to operate our local industries, even if we're importing something from Wyoming or from Canada, that's still an import for us. And the best way that we can mitigate the risk is by producing the energy locally. And so when we're looking at wind and solar and natural resources, which Nebraska has the ability to really grow into, it really cuts down on the risk that we are dependent on other players to sustain our needs. And so those are just, I just wanted to add that as something that if you're going out and talking to people about wind and solar, those are two key things that I really wanted to make sure that we talked about.
Can I say no?
So my stepson is one of the landowners in the Shoals project. He's 42 years old, worked his butt off his whole life, wanted to be a farmer, and his banker says to him, you are going to have to go to town and you are going to have to get a job or I will not renew your operating loan for the farm. So here he is driving to Wayne, working every day, and still trying to come home and run his farming operation. So he has this conversation with his neighbor who says, I really don't like the way these wind turbines look. And he said, I thought you liked me. He said, I thought you wanted new young farmers. He said, I thought you wanted somebody to come back in and take over the land and help support the community and the church and the community and all those things. He said, I thought you wanted that. And he said, well, I do. And he said, well, maybe you ought to think about these things a little bit differently. And maybe every time you see a wind turbine out there on some farmer's land, you ought to think about it as an important part-time job that farmer can use to stay in business.
Great story. Thanks for that passion. Appreciate that, John. All right, so let's help join me and give these guys a nice round of applause and thank you for their commitment.